Senior Report thanks Edmund Besch of Bristol Burgess Insurance Agency, 65 East Main Street, Westfield, for his generous grant to provide news to seniors. Funding is provided by a grant from New York State Senator Catherine M. Young, representing Western New York's 57th District with a local office in Olean. Funding is provided by a grant from Absolute Care of Westfield, committed to returning the favor to those who spent a lifetime caring for others. Absolute Care is located at 26 Cass Street in Westfield. Dave Cass and Rick Newell provide funding on behalf of the Lakeview Hotel and Restaurant at the docks, located on Water Street near the lake in Mayville. Senior Report with Reed Powers thanks Westfield's Schultz Chevy for a generous grant to inform seniors of important news. Over 50 years of service to Westfield by Chevrolet, Schultz Chevy across from the school. The physicians of Jamestown Primary Care are happy to sponsor the Senior Report. From the Access Channel 5 television studio in Mayville, it's Senior Report with Reed Powers. Senior Report is broadcast live throughout northern Chautauqua County on Saturday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. each week. Call in and share a thought, make a comment, ask a question, or simply wish someone a happy birthday on Chautauqua County's only live call-in senior program. Since 1995, Reed has been bringing viewers hundreds of interesting guests, informing the community on a variety of subjects. Here's the host of the show, Reed Powers.
So emphatic. Thank you, Chuck Kelsey. What a beautiful day we have here in Chautauqua County. Here we're in the middle of, well into December, and the temperature outside as we speak is 42 degrees. This is Saturday, the 8th of December. And we have a great guest coming on. We have our county historian who has a lot of history in her, Michelle Henry, who's going to tell us about a lot of different things of interest to the county. And we'll even talk about the hidden gold and all the wonderful things that go on in the history of this county, including that big walnut tree. You ever hear about the walnut tree over in Silver Creek? Yes. Which wound up in Buffalo, and then they shipped it somewhere else. We're going to be talking about all the great things going on in this great nation, the fiscal cliff, which is just window dressing for passing a tax in the middle of the night on the middle class. That's what's going to happen. Mark my words, you heard it first on Senior Report. There'll be tax increases for the middle class and very little increase for the rich and powerful, the 1% that run this country and own the Congress. So the Congress certainly won't pass a big tax on them, since a lot of them are there. Oh, well, and of course in New York State we have the same plight. We are running behind on money here. They've decided to use the, when they put in the New York State Thruway, it had to be voted on by the public, and the public was assured by everybody involved, all the lawmakers, that there would be a 30-year bond to cover the costs, and they'd have to have a toll for that. After 30 years, the bond will be paid off. They will drop the tolls. How do you know a politician is lying? His lips are moving, right? The old gag? No, the tolls have steadily gone up, not disappeared, after the bonds are paid off. And now they're using it as a little piggy bank to take money out, to turn it up, to shake it, to finance some of the state's expenses. They're going to raise the taxes on the trucks, not the cars, the trucks. I say raise a tax. It's actually a tax, but it's called a toll for the thruway. 46%, almost half again as much. Well, it's just the truckers. Wait a minute. Who do you think pays that? Come on, give me a break. The trucker raises his rates for his use of the thruway, of course, and the supermarket gets with the product. They raise their rates because they had to pay the truck more, and guess who winds up paying it? You do. Raise the ruckus about that, friends. Call your New York State representatives. We've got Kathy Young, God bless her. She's done more for this county than anybody else we've had there. And we've got Andy Young, Kathy Young, and Andy Goodell. Goodell just won his seat handily, I might add. And he's also giving us a grant, helping us out on this program to keep our expenses going. We're a nonprofit, but we do have expenses, and we need equipment from time to time. Okay, friends, we have right up here in the county, of course, deer season is in full operation. It ends, I guess, today, the regular deer season, the gun season, but then it has a second archery and I believe muzzle loading season coming up, but at least I know it's archery. And whether or not they can use, they have the new way of arching, of fledging, or what, I don't know what it's called, archery. They have the bow gun, which is a very powerful little thing. It shoots a steel bolt, I might add, in many cases. And you draw it back, and it's very powerful, and it's a little tiny thing. It's just like shooting a gun, and you can use your trigger, and poof, off goes your shot. Silently, of course, just like the regular bow. But the crossbow is in use, and I don't know if they will allow that. There was a rumor that they were not allowing it with the regular bow hunters. Bow hunters were, I don't know why they objected to it, but they do. Maybe because it's so easy to use and powerful, and it could cause an accident more than having to draw a regular bow. But you still have to get very close to your deer. So there's a new season coming on as of, I believe it's Sunday or Monday it opens up, and that's for another week or so. We did have an advantage this year. They had one day when you could take out a kid, I think it was a 14-year-old kid, and get him into archery, get him into deer hunting, which is fading fast. Very, very little deer hunting going on because people are, well, the younger kids aren't going into hunting. They're going into hunting for ladies. and they play games on TV rather than going out into the woods and getting involved with nature. So the insurance companies are going crazy. They're demanding more doe and more hunting, more deer hunting. That's why we have such a long season this year. And everybody wanted to shoot a doe, got at least one permit, sometimes two, because why do they want to do away with the deer? Well, let me tell you something. What's the most dangerous animal in the United States? The deer. Kills more people than any other animal. Auto accidents, of course. And who has to pay for the cars? Well, ultimately you do, but the insurance companies are trying to cut back on this. So less deer, less accidents. So the insurance companies are making sure that you get plenty of time to hunt deer and doe. Cutting one doe out cuts out 2 deer a year, often, sometimes more, but the bucks are still rampant. Okay, guys, enough about that. That's the local stuff. I've got some good news from our senior crowd. Grapeville seniors, they take wonderful bus tours, and most senior groups go to the casino. And the seniors get a certain amount of chips for free. They get bus fare is covered because of that. They get a chit for lunch usually. And it's a nice outing. It's a great time to get out. Just don't gamble. Use your chips, and if you win, walk away. If you lose, walk away. Don't gamble. If you gamble, the only people who make money in a casino are the owners. You will lose your shirt, and you will come home on that bus half naked. Great Bell seniors, what a bunch. They have exercise classes, and you'd call them and ask if you're interested in it. They have, the Great Bell crowd has a tremendous crowd coming over for exercise. And most groups now have a regular exercise class. And all kinds of fun exercises, I might add, starting with just sitting in your chair and working out, tension exercises, to running laps around the school. You know, the Dunkirk crowd and some of the others use it, has a school, an old school, and they have a lap laid out in the hallways. You can take that, you can run laps in the middle of winter when there's a blizzard outside. Brockton Portland crowd, very interesting, and Margaret Jagoda is quite active over there, Art Donovan and Alberta Blakely, and I want to say thank you for your work. Beulah Williams, Pat Nixon, Mary Deland, and Mary Trippi had a lot of guests come in from Pittsburgh. And hello, B. Lee, new member, B. Lee. You can't miss that, B-E-E-L-E-E. Pat Zangi is the treasurer, and says we got plenty of dough, and we're going to send $100 to the food pantry. And this time of year, everybody is concerned about making sure that people at least have a decent Christmas dinner. And remember, we're one of the counties in New York State where things is tough. And so give generously to your food pantry, your community kitchen. There are a number of kitchens where they provide hot food, hot dinners. And let's make sure everybody is taken care of during this wonderful time of giving. Happy birthday over there to Charlie Redding. They're having a Christmas party at noon, December 17th at the St. Stephen's Hotel, which has been newly renovated, I might add. All right. Independent health care. If you want health care, you've got to get changed over by the 7th. That's yesterday. Now you have to wait another year, although they do. I changed it over, and I was denied by the Medicare. And I said, what the heck's going on? They said, well, what happened is your past insurance company applies early. So they had applied just after you applied to us. It came in, and the latest one is the one they give you, so they refuse to accept ours now. So in order to beat that, you got to reapply with us. So it'll be later than the last one that went in, which I'd already canceled, I might add. But I didn't catch their reapplication. You understand what I'm saying here? It's confusing, I know. But I did reapply, so now the latest one is with the one I'd like to have. So much for that. Silver Creek, what a bunch over there. Dolly Beebe over there, tables decorated by Irene Connie, who's been the president forever, and she's so active over there. And they had a pine cone turkey, which would be kind of interesting. All right. Ed Newman does the job over there in Silver Creek, I might add. And Mary Smith has the most important job. She calls bingo. Every senior crowd has bingo. Oh, well, whatever. I got so much stuff here. They tell me I'm running out. Westfield Rec has sent a letter. They're having a trip December 11th to Cleveland to visit the James A. Garfield House. I think they killed him. He was one of the first presidents who was assassinated, sadly. Probably a Buffalo guy. Everybody comes from Buffalo. $38 a person. Dinner on your own. Christmas display. G's, Nella Park, the whole schmear. New officers, Gary, I guess this is probably Jerry Harper. Shirley Capine is the president. Jerry's the vice. Secretary Sylvia Colby and Treasurer Dolores Kaufman. And these were all unanimously accepted. The money is not too good. It's all giveaway. Potluck, December 13th at the Y. Bring your own table service, dish to pass, etc., etc. And I've got, one more item. Okay, one more item here. I've got to put this in. This is for Mary Ann Spanos. Next Tuesday, National Call-In Day on Seniors, Sequestration, and the Fiscal Cliff. Call, tweet, and spread the word. On Tuesday, there'll be a National Fiscal Call-In Day for seniors. Everybody should call in Tuesday. To do it, incidentally, a lot of the funding for the seniors is up for grabs, and they may just drop it. Yeah, chop it. You've got to call your member of Congress. That's Mr. Reed, represents us here, Tom Reed. Dial 888-876-6242. I will repeat this toll-free number. Next Tuesday, when you have a moment, call in and say, don't cut the sequester. We want it. We want our 1.5 trillion reductions in discretionary spending. And any additional cuts to the older seniors act and domestic discretionary programs below the caps previously established should be rejected. reduce the deficit through a balanced approach without increasing the poverty of seniors, which is getting worse and worse because they keep cutting it and cutting it and cutting it. Every funding program is being cut. Seniors under the bus, throw them away. Call in again, 888-876-6242. Tell them to stop cutting senior funding, and also, I might add, give us a fair COLA. You've dropped us to half what we used to get 10 years ago, just 10 years back. We got $1. We're now getting 50 cents worth of product for the same Social Security that we had. Enough said. Mary Ann Spanos, thanks for that tip, I might add. All right, enough said. We're done. We're finished. There is according to Crosscut, Fred Crosscut, who's going to be on here shortly, a 20% tax hike, possibly, coming for your county taxes. You heard it first from Senior Report. When I mentioned the fact, stand back, you're going to get a crazy county tax increase. And here it is on the table. We'll be talking to Fred about that, and also Lori Cornell, who's the minority leader, and about the sale of the hospital, which is tripped up. They were going to sell it to a company that has a record of having the worst nursing home in the United States. Well, what can you say? Enough said. All right, I got a public service announcement for you. Here you go. This is just for you. It'll take your mind off the craziness going on around here.
Gold medalist skier requires a lot of hard work, intense training, and time outside on the mountain. But taking care of my skin is easy and doesn't affect my performance. Every day I apply sunscreen and wear protective gear. I know protecting my skin will help prevent skin cancer and avoid wrinkles. I get my skin checked regularly by a dermatologist. 1 in 5 Americans will develop some form of skin cancer in their lifetime. My name is Julia Mancuso, and I'm wearing orange to help put a spotlight on skin cancer.
Okay, so it takes a lot of folks, and incidentally, it causes wrinkles. Too much sun. We got a guy here, he shoots from the hip. He's going to tell it like it is. This is Doc Hamels. You're on, Doc.
Good morning, Reed. Wrinkleologist? Is that what
Wrinkleologist.
Wrinkleologist. I need a hairyologist. Well, good morning. Good morning, Michelle. Good morning, folks. Welcome to the show. Well, Reed, I got good news and bad news. The good news is I'm really glad to be here. The bad news is, according to my Mayan calendar, this is our second last show.
That's right. The world ends next week.
No, we got one more show.
2 weeks,
yeah. Chuck Wheeler, I'm not sure if you're going to make it, but we'll see.
Well,
stay tuned.
He's a priest. Maybe he can. Maybe he can do something.
Get a reprieve for us. Okay. While you guys were on the air, I got a call from a very nice lady. We were talking, and she said that she wanted me to make this announcement. You had told her to call. This is regarding the Westfield Community Chorus.
Okay.
They are doing a holiday program called a cantata tomorrow, December 9th, at the Mayville Methodist Church at 4 o'clock, and then later on at the Westfield Presbyterian Church at 7:30. It's a 45-minute program, and she tells me that the singers are from all over the area. There's 35 of them.
Yeah, well, I've heard them before. They're terrific, and they have a quartet.
Oh,
yeah,
all right.
They do some singing themselves.
Okay, and they also will be appearing at the Absolute Care in Westfield at 7 o'clock on Monday evening. So if you're got some folks over there, you'll enjoy that music. Okay, Reed, just a kind of interesting promotion here that I want to mention, and this has to do with Access 5 here. As some of you may know, in the past, we run various kinds of programs. We got that crazy show that we did with the 4th of July parade, and there's other things that they film and show it from time to time. Well, we have a great Christmas special that we just filmed this past week. Chuck Kelsey asked me to contact a couple of musicians, and so I'm happy to announce that there's going to be a program starting next week, from what I understand, on this channel called Christmas in Your Heart, featuring Bill Ward. Do you know Bill Ward?
Well, we had him here.
Okay. There's Amanda.
And you.
Well, no, not my partner.
Oh, not
This
Bill.
Ward. There's a different Bill.
Different Bill.
Ward. Bill Ward has been around forever.
Okay.
You got Amanda Barton, who's the daughter of Stan Barton, and from what I understand now, the granddaughter of Bumpy Peterson. And these are all. She's like a third generation musician, and myself. And we filmed over at the Hulbert Church, Methodist Church at Chautauqua, and we've done a number of songs, and some of them are original songs by Bill, and it's going to be a great show, and I hope that you get a chance to catch it here on Access.
When's it going to run, do you know?
I don't know. Starting a week before Christmas. So
yeah, if you look at our schedule,
right.
You'll find
So that's called Christmas in Your Heart, coming up here on Access 5. Okay, just my commentary for today. I don't know about you, but I'm getting really hacked off. Not about the things you're talking about the things I'm concerned about.
Well, I'm always hacked off.
I know you're always hacked off, but I'm getting a little hacked off more than ever. Everything around us seems to be a game of chicken or who's going to blink first kind of a thing. Whether it's at the local level, which you're talking about the county home, to sell or not to sell, and everybody's sort of like doing this last minute move for negotiations and so forth. Then you got the increase in spending a while back with the government, where it was they took us right to the last second, remember, and they resolved it and they increased the spending cap. And now here we go again. We're on this fiscal cliff, and they're taking us right to the edge again. What happened to the art of negotiation and compromise out there, folks? This is getting ridiculous. People are unemployed. People are worried about how they're going to get through a given week financially, paying for the groceries, medications, whatever. And you got these jokers in Washington. I'm sorry, folks, but that's how it seems to me. They're playing this big game of chicken. Who's gonna move first or flinch first? And meanwhile, people are just fretting. You got the holidays upon us. Why are you putting us through all this angst every time we get to the end of your congressional session or whatever? Get on the stick, get into the room, get this thing resolved, and negotiate. That's what you're there for. Back to you, Reed.
Thank you. Well said. The craziness going on in our Congress that's really what's causing a lot of trouble in this country, I'm afraid. They've got a huge deficit, they can't control it, and it looks like the tax breaks that were put through by Bush are going to end. That's the cliff, I might add, December 31st. And suddenly everybody's going to be paying a whopping $2,000 more in taxes, no matter how poor you are, apparently. And the rich, of course, will not be paying anything to speak of anyway. This year, I'm just, Mitt Romney, who ran for president, is a billionaire, at least half a billionaire, and very rich, and he paid 14%. So that's all I'm going to send in. I'm going to send in 14% of my income. That's it, or my normal income tax. And I'll let him come after me. I'll say, well, talk to Mitt, That's what he pays. That's what all the millionaires and billionaires pay. Why should I pay more? Michelle Henry doesn't believe this. Michelle is with us today. She is a noted member of our county. You've had several positions in the county from different times. And I just want to talk to her a little bit, and she's going to give us some history, some background, some interesting information and news that will affect seniors and all the people in the county. And all I want to do is say, good morning, Michelle.
Good morning, Reed. Happy to be here.
Well, where are you from? Where were you raised?
I was raised in Pennsylvania.
What part of Pennsylvania?
Right across the line in Erie, Erie County. But my family came to Chautauqua County in 1821. They were original purchasers from the Holland Land Company. And I spent a lot of time here because so many of my relatives are here. So yeah. I feel like a native, even though I can't say I am.
Yeah, well, that's quite a ways back. My family, too, founded Panama, was over there. Oh. Mm-hmm. And you can always tell who was a founder of a community. You go to the cemetery. The first thing they have to do is put up a cemetery. Joe dies, where we're going to drop Joe,
That's right.
So they designated usually a 40-acre patch, or at least 20, for the cemetery. And they put up an arch, and that's that. Now, they start selling the lots off to pay for the costs of running it and maintaining it and buying it. And the first lots that are going to go are the ones up front. You don't want to be buried in the back somewhere, back in Timbuktu in the bushes. So you go into the cemetery and look to your right, and that'll be the first most potent family because they got the best lots right inside the arch on the right. The second family gets them right inside the arch on the left. I'm proud to announce on the right there are dozens of Powerses. So at any rate, and you came over here in the 1800s. We came over in the 1700s, rattled around upstate. Actually, rattled around up in New England, Boston and so forth. And then they came down. My great-great-great-grandfather came down, Simeon Powers and his good wife Polly, who are buried in that cemetery in Panama. They came down in the turn of the century, early 1800s, and got him started, and he wrestled a bear, saved his congregation. It was in the paper. I can't get the article anymore, though.
Oh, goodness.
Well, a former member of the government in Panama lost it. I will not mention his name. That made Greg angry. All right, so at any rate, you came up here. Now, where'd you go to school? College?
I went to Penn State for a bachelor's degree in anthropology, and then...
And you're a historian. Now, that sort of fits in a way.
They're closely related. I think that an anthropological background really is a very broad liberal arts education, and I took a lot of history classes along the way, and then I left this area and went to Arizona and had a master's degree and a graduate certificate in museum studies from Arizona State. And I was very anxious to get back here. It's wonderful to get to see another part of the country, but I did not want to stay in Arizona. It's too hot, too congested. Phoenix is huge.
It doesn't have the wonderful natural facilities we have here, the lakes, the hills, the mountains, the plains, the Lake Plain. It's just fantastic. And of course, we're on an inland sea, Lake Erie, which is fantastic too.
Right. So I had a chance to come back here, and I was offered a job at the County Historical Society in Westfield, and it was just such a treat to be able to work there because my grandmother used to take me there when I was a child, and that was probably the first museum I ever visited. And such a wonderful collection. It's the oldest historical society in the county. It was formed in 1883, so they started collecting when there were still the children of our pioneer settlers still alive, and many of their first members were just one generation away from our first settlers. And so they have some wonderful things in the collection. And that's one of the things I wanted to mention today is that one of our very first historians was Eliel Todd Foote, a very important man in our early history. And his intention was to write a history of Chautauqua County back in the 1840s and 50s. And he collected letters and information about our pioneer our settlers, and he kept them all in scrapbooks. And those have now been digitized, and because they're incredibly fragile, folks back in those days always needed to conserve paper, and so he took old business ledgers and he glued letters and documents into these old ledgers. And so they're all handwritten and they're incredibly fragile, and now they've been digitized and they're available online. And there's information in there about the War of 1812, the anti-slavery movement, temperance. There's just incredible letters written by people who were the first to come into their communities, and they talked about what they experienced, how they built their first house. So really great primary sources, and it's indexed so you can search it. So I just want to let people know.
Where do you get it?
If you go to the Chautauqua County Historical Society's website, and you can just do a search for McClurg Museum or Chautauqua County Historical Society, or just for Eliel Todd Foote, and then you'll get right to that group of records, and you can search it. You can bring the images right up, and it's just a wonderful resource.
Okay, yeah, I remember Mrs. Nixon was hot on that. Remember over in Westfield? She actually didn't want us to tear down any old buildings. She would raise a rumpus whenever a historic. That's why they moved one bill. Well, let's see. The old Seward Mansion was taken from down near Welch's at the foot of the hill all the way up to the top of the hill.
Right.
And then they just moved fairly recently where the CVX is or whatever.
Right.
They moved the big building there, Captain's
the Storm,
Hornblowers or Captain Storm.
Yeah, the Storm House. My grandparents were married in that house.
Oh, really?
In 1940, which I didn't know until they moved it. So I'm happy that they saved it. It's a beautiful building.
Well, I know too. I had some dear friends who lived there, and it's a gorgeous home. It's just moved over a few blocks, actually a block, across the street and down a little ways. It's now next to another lodge. What is it? The Lamplight Lodge or something like that?
Right, Candlelight
Lodge, right next to it.
Yeah.
And I guess you can stay in it if you want to.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's a beautiful old home.
You know, speaking of historic structures, that's another thing I'd like to just let folks know about. so many seniors are volunteers in various organizations, and what would we do without them? These folks who are willing to put in time and energy into historical societies or any groups that they're interested in, and I just think that's so important. One of the things that was done last year during the county bicentennial was an inventory of all of the 19th century structures in the county. And you can imagine the work that went into that. There were volunteers, and many of them were seniors, who went out into all of our towns and our communities and photographed houses that were over 100 years old. And we have a little bit of information about each property, and it's now all available on my website at the county.
Well, isn't that something? I wonder if my house is in it, because my house is the first house built in Westfield. It's the oldest house there that is still standing.
Well, it better be.
It was 1808 they built it.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And it looks like it. I'm not a really fussy guy when it comes to taking care of a house, but I maintained it. I'm putting a new roof on it. That storm came through and blew off part of my roof.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Well, that's having an older house does mean that you do put in a lot of extra work, keeping it in good shape.
We have not got it on the historical landmark
register
or whatever, but it is quite an old house, and it's beautiful. One day I was sitting on my porch, and a couple guys came up to my porch, and I said yes, and they said, "Could we dig out your cesspool?" I said, "What?" Oh. I said, "What are you talking about?" They said, "Well, we can tell by the structure of this house that it's a very old house, and that means it would have at least 2 cesspools out back." And they had these big rods with handles on them. We said, "We just poke around till we find it." I said, "Well, what are you digging it for?" "Well, there's all kinds of bottles and things, because back in those days, people that drank alcohol were, let's say, not persecuted, but it was not appreciated that you were drunk." And so everybody made alcohol, including William Seward. He made a bottled drink for your kidneys or something. It was always a kidney elixir or something.
Right.
And they would keep it out in the outhouse. And when they finished, they'd dump it into the hole, and that took care of that. Well, these old bottles now are worth a lot of dough. And also, baby dolls would go down, and lanterns would go down, and there's all kinds. So they dug, and they found a gorgeous, immediately found a place. It was 8 by 10 by 12, bricked in. It was bricked on the side walls. They dug it all out, and all kinds of stuff. They gave me some of it. We got a phone call. I just want to, I'm not through talking. Good morning, caller. Thank you for waiting. Hello.
Good morning. Thank you.
What's up?
I have a question for your guest.
Yeah.
Some of us are sitting around here talking about, gee, how come they knocked down all the really cool looking buildings in the county? Unlike if you go to Europe, they have a moratorium on certain buildings that are of a certain age and they can't.
Sadly, Mrs. Nixon passed away. She used to stop that.
But for instance, the Victorian home that was in front of I think it's the Westfield Hospital, why was that knocked down? How would you stop that nowadays? I mean, how do we preserve our historical buildings?
That's a great question, and that's a struggle, I think, for all of our communities. There isn't, I don't know of any single community in the county that has historic preservation zoning, and that really is the only way to truly protect historic buildings on a community-wide basis. Private property is private property, and even if a house is on the National Register of Historic Places, the owner has the right to tear it down or do anything they want to it. So I think it's really about just raising awareness of how valuable these are to preserving what our downtowns look like and what our communities look like. And it is costly. Sometimes buildings are in such a state of disrepair that the owners can't put the money into them that they would need to save them. We've lost so many barns in our county, even just in the last 10 years, because they're no longer being used as barns and they just sit until they fall in. So it's a challenge, and there's a cost involved. I think that I think more people are aware of how valuable these buildings are to keeping our communities looking, attractive. But there's always the challenge of the money that is needed to take care of them.
Yeah, the old barns are valuable. they love the silvery, beautiful woodwork on them, and they're usually pretty thick, so they can take several slices out of it and makes wonderful decor.
Oh, the planks in some of those
Yeah.
barns are just huge. The trees that must have been used to build them were massive.
Yes.
So.
Well, and of course, you had mentioned the McClurg Museum in Westfield, right in the middle of the park. You know that he was a pretty wealthy guy, came in from Pittsburgh, and he said, I want to build a decent house here, and there's no brick factory. So he built his own factory, and he made his own bricks and built the house, and he donated the park to the churches. He said each corner
Right.
there would be a church. Well, only two of them took care of it, accepted it. One is a Presbyterian church by the Westfield Library, and the other one is on the opposite corner, the old telephone building area, and across from Easton Hall, and that was Episcopalian Church, St. Peter's.
Right. And I think it's important to mention the year, 1818, when the house was started, which is so early. First brick building in the county. So
Yeah.
it's just an amazing structure. We're so lucky that that one did not get destroyed, and it came within days of being demolished by the
really?
village of Westfield.
Oh, my goodness.
Because when Mr. McClurg's grandson passed away, he was the last occupant of the house, and he left it to the village. And they didn't know what to do with that big building. You know, it was the same situation. They didn't have the money to put into it to restore it or to maintain it. And so the village voted to tear it down. And fortunately, the Chautauqua County Historical Society came along and offered to lease it from the village. So it came very, very close to being demolished. And what a loss that would have been.
Oh, it would have been terrible. And also, an interesting side note is they do the Civil War reenactment around that building in that park. And they used to shoot the cannons off all the time.
Yes.
And they asked them not to shoot the cannons off because it shakes the house.
It does, it does. And I think one year we had the Civil War weekend, and we had to make sure we didn't do it during church service on Sunday morning. So that would have been a bit of a scare, I think.
Yeah.
We should mention, if anybody hasn't been to the McClurg Museum, their open house, their holiday open house is tomorrow, Sunday,
Sunday, the date would be the 9th.
the 9th, from 2 to
Okay.
4. And it is decorated just beautifully for the holidays, and there'll be music by the West Winds from Westfield School. So
And it's free?
it's free.
Just
free.
walk right in.
Wonderful, and wonderful desserts. So a great opportunity for anybody who hasn't been there in a while, or even if you have been, if you haven't seen it decorated for the holidays, it's great.
One of the most interesting things I've ever found there is that old safe. I guess it was operated by Seward, actually, at one point. They kept all the mortgages and real estate stuff and everything in this safe over in Mayville, as I understand it. And you cannot open it with a key. There's no combination lock, but it's covered with a whole bunch of knobs. If you move one knob over and another knob up and a third knob over, it opens it.
But only there are 2 doors, and each of them have the hidden knobs. So even if you weren't able to figure out the first door, you'd still have to tackle a second door. So it's a wonderful piece. That actually was, I don't think it was used in Mayville, because when Seward became the Holland Land agent, he actually relocated to the McClurg Museum, and he used that as his office for 2 years. So Seward rented that house from the McClurg family in the 1830s, while the McClurgs were off traveling around the world, because they did have an awful lot of money.
Yes.
And so folks who were buying property here in the county had to come to Westfield, to the McClurg mansion.
Where that big funny safe was.
Yes, yes.
Still there.
So, yes.
Good morning, caller. Thank you for waiting.
Good morning. Well, first off, being it's the season of the year, I have to start off with saying that there's excitement is rampant, and tickets are available for the wonderful Christmas program that the dance studio in Westfield.
Oh, she always mentions the dance studios. I think
Not always,
she's
but-
related to it. I think she
Well,
probably
I have-
owns it. I suspect she owns
Actually,
it.
I have grandchildren that are both dancing at the dance studio, so I am kind of related to it.
Okay.
But it's a wonderful show that is put on every year, and everybody I know that goes to it seems to enjoy it.
And don't forget to go over to the Christmas program at the McClurg Mansion, too, from 2 to 4, right?
Correct.
That's tomorrow.
Tomorrow,
Right? And it will be free, and they have wonderful things to eat, all of them antiques.
Is this the Westfield Historical Society? That's
Yes,
having-
it is.
Okay,
they're
it was just
sponsoring,
on the
right?
on the Buffalo News, on their little thing that runs underneath.
Yeah, well, so don't forget to stop in. It's free, and the kids would go wild in there.
I was going to mention that too.
Yeah, thank you.
And I understand that our guest is a historical expert also for our county. So
Yeah, she's the one.
everything kind of just ties in, doesn't it?
Yeah, you bet.
Is there any way now? My people have been in the county for generations now.
Yeah.
Is there any way that locally people can look back and see, kind of trace their family history through something in Chautauqua County rather than going on one of those things on the line where you have to pay to go?
Oh, absolutely. We have so many different repositories with historical records that can help you do your family history. In my office at the courthouse, we have land records back to the very first deed ever recorded in Chautauqua County in 1811. We have census records that allows you to track a family every 5 years between the federal and the state census records. We have naturalization records if they came here from another country and became citizens. There are some marriage records, and actually frequently you can find information about your family in our civil and criminal court records, and that doesn't always mean that your ancestors were criminals, but sometimes you can find an awful lot of family history in those records.
Absolutely.
And
now, is there any charge for these records?
Not at the courthouse. Those are mostly, public records. There's a few things that are sealed, but primarily.
If you want to see them, do you have to go look at them, or do you? I mean, how do you get access to them? I guess is what I'm asking.
Most of them are open, anytime the county courthouse is open, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, you can come in and there are people in the clerk's office who can help you. Myself, I'm happy to help people. I do it every day who come in to do research. The records that are in the archive.
I missed that. What office is that?
My office is the office of the county historian, and I'm right on the first floor of the courthouse. And the county clerk's office is in that same area, and she holds.
Now, which courthouse? Because now the automobile used to be in one place, and now it's in another place.
Right, we're in the old the 1908 building.
Where the old place used to be.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So, and then.
And you're on the first floor.
Right on the first floor. We have a lot of indexes so that the records are pretty easy to find. If you do want to search for a particular document, we typically, can help you with that.
You can help guide us.
Absolutely. Well,
that's very interesting. I maybe I will come over and.
They're very good. They're very helpful.
Take advantage of that.
We'd love to have you, and we have people come from all over the country and really all over the world because their family came through here. We had so many immigrants that came through. We're on that great westward migration path. And we love that. We love having people come and use our records.
I think ours were originally on that Great Western, but they found Chautauqua County, decided they'd gone west far enough and settled here.
Well, we were the Wild West for a while there, so.
Well, thank you, caller.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, Merry Christmas to you and a Happy Hanukkah, whatever it is.
And
yours too. To you and yours too.
Thank you.
My records are just the government records, but all of our historical societies have great records too. The Fenton History Center, the Barker Museum, the County Historical Society, those are valuable resources for family researchers.
Now there's out in front of the courthouse to the side a little bit, there still is what looks like a smokehouse.
Yeah.
It's a brick thing. That was a safe. That's where they kept the stuff, as I understand it.
That was the first vault.
Right, and a guy named Peacock was in charge of the land sales up here, and they used to accept barter, and especially potash, which was very, very. A lot of trees here. They boiled it, they burned it down, and the potash was worth its weight in more than diamonds. And for a little tiny handful, you got 25 grand back in the 1800s, early 1800s. So at any rate, they decided to stop taking barter, and so they went to all these farmers who were basically poor as they could be, and said, now you got to pay cash. And it incensed the farmers because they were taking their homes away from them. And so the farmers raised a rebellion, went up there, and they tried to get hold of Peacock and hang him. They knew where he was. And so they had a huge mob for him, and Peacock had a big friend, very tall guy, and he was short, and he had a big overcoat, and he walked Peacock out of the mob scene under his coat. He walked away and got him to safety. But it was quite a scene over there.
It was Donald Mackenzie, who was
a big boy.
He was supposedly he was 6'4", a big Scotsman, and he had been an explorer and worked for John Jacob Astor. So he was very hale and hearty, and he lived at the top of the hill in right where this building is. His house was right on this site, And yeah, he went and rescued Peacock. I really don't know that they would have killed him. Do you think they would have?
Oh, they would have hung him in a wink.
Oh, I don't know about that. But Peacock was an elderly man at the time, and Donald Mackenzie marched him up the hill and kept him in his house until the danger had passed. Mackenzie's portrait and his wife's portrait are at the McClurg Museum. They're being restored, and her name was Adelgonda Humbert Droz Mackenzie, and she had 13 children. So if you look at her portrait, you can see a very tough woman.
Yeah, and a tough husband who actually probably risked his life. If they caught him, they would have hung him right along with Polk and Peacock.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, we're having a nice chat here with Michelle Henry. She is the county historian and has been now for quite a while. How long?
I think 12 years.
Yeah, and more history happens every day, of course. You get more and more stuff.
That's right. Our records keep growing at the courthouse, and most of them we are charged with keeping permanently. So we have to always be working to make sure that the records are preserved and always available to the public.
En passant, you had mentioned that some of the records are sealed. Why would they be sealed?
Well, there are records that are sensitive. Divorce records are only open to the people who are the two parties involved or their attorneys. Adoption records are sealed because of the sensitive information that can be in them. And occasionally there is a court record that has the name of a victim that wouldn't be appropriate to be available for the public, and those are sealed.
Like rape victims.
Right, but that represents a very small portion of the records that we hold. So most of ours are public records.
And they probably wouldn't be of much interest to anybody anyway.
Right.
Okay, now you've been doing this for many years. Have you run into any problems in trying to get this stuff, access it, collect it?
Well, when I started working at the courthouse, there really wasn't a formalized records management program. And the county clerk and I worked closely together because some of the records were in the dome of the courthouse.
She's terrific.
Sandy Sopak. She's wonderful. Yeah.
She's so helpful. I went in there and she just bent over backwards to help me get some records one time.
She does. She loves the records. She loves her job. She's great at it. And she and I have had so much fun together because we both really recognize the value of these records. And, you know, when they're in the dome of the courthouse, they're not accessible to the public. And some of them were actually stored in a bathroom. So we've worked, you know, since I started there to get them in a way that they're preserved. And now we have a facility that's secured. It's the only part of the complex that has fire suppression. We have water detectors and heat and smoke detectors. So really for the first time, I think we can say that the records are preserved as well as we can possibly have them. We've done a lot of microfilming and scanning. So it's a constant challenge.
Digitizing them is fantastic.
Yes.
That's a big advantage, especially when you go online.
Yes.
Let's see, recall, Seward was the land agent or something for the Holland Land Company, wasn't he at one point?
Right. Peacock was our first land agent, and he had that vault that's in front of the courthouse constructed in 1810. And he was required to. The Holland Land Company required all of their agents to construct a stone vault. So I think that's kind of interesting that even then they recognized the value of, you know, preserving those records. After the raid in 1836, William Seward became our land agent, and he worked in that capacity until he got called to bigger and better things.
Right. Well, the bigger and better thing is the second highest position after the president, really, the Secretary of State.
Right.
The vice president doesn't count for schmaltz. He's only there to be a heartbeat away from the presidency.
So Seward, you know, I think he maintained connections to this area because he was supposedly involved in the work going on to form the new platform for the Republican Party in the 1850s.
He was one of the founders of it.
Right.
And he, I don't know, he got sort of mopped out of it. But the railroad people over in Illinois took care of him in a big way, sadly.
Well, the folks here in Western New York wanted him to be the candidate for president. You know,
he was.
They didn't want Lincoln.
Yeah.
So I think that shows you how well he was respected.
Well, he had a whole trainload of people going over to support him. He had a lock on the convention, they tell me. They had built what they called the teepee, a great big building for that. And when he got there, he noticed that they were segregated way over in a corner, away from everybody else, so they couldn't communicate easily. And there were Pinkertons all over the place. He wondered what that was all about. And so when he got in there, he had a marching band come through, and they came through in uniform and everything, spontaneous, they say. And then everybody, all his people and everybody followed them out, and they locked the doors. They locked them out, and they started holding the election for the next president. And Seward won handily the first round. Second round, he won by an edge. Third round, Lincoln won. And then the fourth round, I think it was, fourth or fifth round, Lincoln got the majority. And by the time they got in, they had a paddy wagon there arresting these people who were banging on the door trying to get in. I was the darndest thing. Goodbye, Seward. Well, he did get a consolation prize. He was made Secretary of State.
Right.
And he bought Alaska, 7 cents an acre. Seward's Folly, they called it.
Right.
Oh, my God, what a deal that was, huh?
Yeah, can you imagine?
Yeah. And oh, yeah. One of our callers wants to know about the last hanging they had in our area.
Oh, yeah, well, that's
They
one
used
of
to
our...
hang people here?
We did. That's one of our claims to fame.
Oh, yeah?
The last public hanging in New York State was here in Chautauqua County. A man named Joseph Damon, who was from the Leona area in Pomfret, murdered his wife. He killed her with a poker from his fireplace. And he was arrested. He didn't flee the scene. He was there when the neighbors arrived, when they heard her yelling. And he was tried. He was brought to Mayville and tried, and he was found guilty. He was sentenced to be hung in 1835. And at that same time, there was a lot of public sentiment about how it was really unacceptable to have these public spectacles of public hangings.
I mean, everybody came out to watch.
Everybody came out to watch.
The
The sheriff invited all of the prominent people in the county, and the sheriff sent letters to the militia band and told them to come in their uniforms and pick good music because there was a big crowd. So it really was a public spectacle, and we have some of those letters still, and so I think that's really, it gives you an idea of how much of a public spectacle it was, because they wanted to make sure that the band performed well. Joseph Damon was held at the jail until the hanging, and he was marched. He had to wear his burial shroud as he marched behind his own coffin. And the militia band formed a square around him and played music as he walked to the gallows, and he was hung in May of 1836. The state had actually banned public hangings just, I think, 7 or 9 days prior to that. And so some people say, well, we didn't know that the law had changed. But I think we did, and I think it didn't matter because the sentence was actually given to him in 1835. So he was hung publicly. It was the last person to be hung publicly in the state. And after that, there were 2 more hangings in the county, but they were within the jail.
What do you mean?
They did it within the confines of the jail.
It was not a public hanging.
Right,
It was
right.
a private hanging.
They were witnessed, but yes, it was done not for the general public, because some people say that there were 8,000 to 15,000 people who came to Mayville in 1836 to witness the hanging, and they brought their families and they had picnics and they came for the weekend.
Yeah, the old story is they used to hang them in England, people who were pickpockets, and during the hanging, there'd be the same spectacles, public, and they'd have lots and lots of people there. And the pickpockets would have a field day.
Oh,
They'd be going through the crowd, picking pockets. We're with Michelle Henry, the historian, our county historian, and she's full of a wealth of information. And we're going to have an opportunity to ask her any questions. We have time for one more caller if somebody wants to call in. Our number, incidentally, is 7535225 or 753-JACK. That's easy to remember.
yes.
Okay, guys, I wanted to ask you about the gold. There's always this rumor in Chautauqua County, up around these parts, them here parts, that the French came through and they had a cache of gold with them. They were being attacked and tracked hard and fast by the English. So they stopped along the creek somewhere, Chautauqua Creek, and in a small cave they packed the gold in and blocked it off and hid it. And it's still there, according to everybody. And every year there's an expedition that goes up and looks for it.
Yes. I frequently get folks coming into my office who want a map of the gorge because they think they are going to be the ones to find it.
Yeah.
So it's a great story. I don't know that there really are I just don't know if anybody's ever going to actually find it, if it ever existed.
Or hasn't been found. It might
or
have been
hasn't.
found too.
Perhaps,
It
perhaps.
might have already been found, and nobody's
Yeah.
going to tell about it. They're going to march it off and sell it off piece by piece. As I say, it's $50 million worth of gold theoretically there.
Oh my. Well, that would be nice. That would be a
No
real
wonder
find,
people want a
wouldn't it?
map of the gorge.
That's right.
Well, they say it's pretty close to Lyons Road. You go down from Lyons Road, which is on the Westfield Sherman Road. It cuts off, and it's just before the Lyons Mill. And the Lyons Mill used to be at the end of Lyons Road, I might add. And you go down Lyons Road, and you hit the creek down there, and in that vicinity is where theoretically the gold was buried.
Well, I do want to caution people that a lot of that is private property. So don't just get your pickaxe and head down into the gorge because you might be actually trespassing. So
Yeah, well, you can get at the end of Lyons Road, you can just walk onto the creek there, and that's legal. You can, as long as there's water. We got another couple of calls. Should we take a call, or should we chat?
Sure. Well, whatever. I'm happy.
Well, it's up to you. It's your
Oh,
call.
well.
Good morning, caller. Well, I'll settle that. Hi, caller.
Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning.
And good morning, Reed. This is Linda Spalding.
Well,
it's
hi,
great
Linda.
that you're on the show.
Well, she's always on the show every year. Or we try to get her on.
Yes, and I really appreciate all the things that you've done to help us preserve our history in Chautauqua County.
Oh, thanks. I love it.
So I just wanted to say that I really appreciate that, and there's some wonderful things going on. I really do love the Lincoln Bedell Square in Westfield, where they have everything decorated. It's just so lovely and attractive now.
Yeah, well, Bedell is the one who wrote that little letter saying you got a weak chin and you're ugly. Put a beard, wear a beard for God's sake. And he did. I'm paraphrasing, but she said you'd look better in a beard. And he grew a beard, and he came back here to Westfield and stopped at the station and said, "I want to meet her," and met her and shook her hand and gave her a kiss.
Isn't that a great story?
It is a great story.
It's
It's
wonderful.
such a heart-rendering, touching story. It's so beautiful. I've read accounts where she got so discombobulated. She had a bouquet of flowers for him that after she met with him, that she ran under wagons and that sort of thing. When she came back, there was hardly anything left of the bouquet.
Can you imagine how terrifying it would have been for an 11-year-old to get called up there to meet the president?
Well, you know, a little noticed, and you wouldn't see it normally, where the statue is of Bedell with a bouquet and Lincoln, down below the bouquet on the floor, on the ground, is one of the flowers.
Oh.
Oh.
Okay, I'm sorry, Linda, we gotta go.
Okay, have a wonderful
Thank
weekend.
you. Thanks.
I just got this terrifying signal. We're out of here.
Oh.
Thanks a lot, Michelle.
Sure.
It's wonderful having you here. You come back soon?
Oh, I'd love to.
Okay,
Thanks.
as soon as there's a little more history.
Okay.
I want to thank Chuck Kelsey, Devin Taylor, Chris Bird, Randy Burt, Chris Ramaker, Jeff Zook, Don Zenz, and all those beautiful people who make this show possible. Sorry, last callers. Linda, we had to cut you off, and the last caller, you didn't even get on. But I keep calling, keep hanging in there, keep being around. We'll have a nice chat with Michelle another day soon, and we can certainly guarantee you we will bring you the important news. Don't forget to call in for that. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, I should say, whoever gave it to me. Yeah. The Advocacy Alert, next Tuesday, National Call-In Day. Spread the word. Call 888-876-6242 and get your congressman on. Tom Reed. Hello, Tom. All right, there you go. Thanks a lot, guys. May all that is proud and true and noble abide with you. I'm Reed Powers.